Hello, listeners, and welcome to a Bag of Games interview with Mitch Gitelman, the executive producer at Harebrained Schemes. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today about Golem Arcana.
No, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
So last year, your company, Harebrained Schemes, successfully crowdfunded and released Shadowrun Returns. Now you've launched a new Kickstarter campaign in hopes of funding the development of a tabletop game called Golem Arcana. Can you share with us a little bit about how the idea of Golem Arcana originated?
Oh, yeah, sure. The way it worked is my partner Jordan, a longtime game designer, and he loves miniatures games. In fact, he used to have his own game store. And he came up with Battletech and HeroClix and Mage Knight. And he was at a store with his kids when they were much younger. I think they were about 8 at the time. We go back a ways. Mm-hmm. And his kids really wanted to play some of the games that he found there, but it was just so hard to get into the hobby, because, he wasn't a good painter. I'm not a good painter. Mm-hmm. So, painting the figures was hard. The rule books were dense and there was all the, additional things to learn and stuff. And there was just this giant barrier to entry.
Sure.
And so with Golem Arcana, we're trying to remove all of the friction from playing these awesome games so that you could just focus on the fun and on your friends and on your tactics. And the important thing for us, I think, is that we're not dumbing down miniatures wargaming at all. Instead, what we're doing is we're getting to the tactics by removing the record keeping, removing the rules arguments.
Sure, streamlining the experience.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, of course, making it so you don't have to paint.
Mm-hmm. Probably the most standout feature for Golem Arcana has to be the tabletop digital interface stylus, TDI that you guys created. As far as I understand, the stylus, it reads microdots printed on the terrain tiles, the figurine bases, and the cards, and then feeds that data to the player's digital device over Bluetooth. In what ways do you see this evolving the tabletop experience?
Well, there's so much that you can do with it. I mean, just for example, the idea of having a tabletop game, with all those figures out there and stuff like that, and having a save game function for that, it's a big deal. A lot of times we think of it as, the cat hit my board function.
Sure.
But there's all sorts yeah, absolutely. So have I. And, there's all sorts of functionality we could add to it, whether it's, we realized through playtesting that, we need to nerf one of the abilities or, extend the range of this thing or something like that. We can automatically update without sending in a errata sheet that you have to memorize.
Oh, sure.
And look up the tables, all that kind of stuff. To be able to download new scenarios that change the way the board plays. And then we've got all these other features that, are in stretch goals that when we add those, they really break things out, like the ability. One of our stretch goals is the ability to play remotely, which is kind of fun. A multiplayer board game, right? So he's got the board at his house with all his figures. You've got the same board with the same figures at your house, right? Because my friends are back in Chicago. I live in Seattle, right? But I still want a board game with them. And so now you can do that if we hit that stretch goal.
Yeah,
Another one's augmented reality, right? So you can pick up your phone and look at the game board, and you still have your iPad set up, but everybody can look at the game board through their own iPhones or whatever, their iPads, and see all the statuses of all the minis on the board and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and see the action one sitting on the edge in 3D, all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. That was actually a feature I was going to ask you about later because I didn't notice it on the Kickstarter page. But yeah, the potential of being able to play remotely with friends, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. What a blast. I mean, here, think of it this way. I've been making computer games and video games for 20 years, and all the stuff that people like us in computer games take for granted, we could start adding to board games and adding that functionality to board games. That's the whole idea. It's just keeping people's focus, on their friends and on the minis, on the figures. And all we're doing is augmenting that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what Golem Arcana is all about, is just helping you play these games, streamlining it and adding to it. One of our other things we want to add is this interactive musical score, which, in a video game is so obvious.
Yep, it reads, the ambience of the environment.
Yeah, exactly. So what if when it's my turn and I have the Durrani Colossus, which is the figure that we just showed last night in a Kickstarter update. This is enormous thing. What if he had his own music?
Oh, sure.
That's the sort of things that, could be in board games, and that's the sort of stuff that we want to add if we were given the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, the potential seems limitless, really. I mean, I could see things like, specific fanfares for winning, or the music speeding up if it was a time-based game. So
yeah, exactly.
That seems really neat. We've seen the TDI being used for attacks and for moving the units. Are there and for casting spells and miracles? Are there any other functionalities that we haven't seen yet?
Well, sometimes when I get frustrated when I'm playing it against Jordan, I throw it at him. It makes a hell of a projectile.
Sure. This uses microdot technology, which before, yesterday I didn't really know what it was. I actually read into the history of it. And what made you use microdots? What made you decide on using a microdot reader instead of, say, an RFID chip or a similar technology?
Well, I think, that's sort of Jordan's area. He's the more techie of us. But I think partly it came down to cost, for one thing. We're trying to keep the game at a very accessible price. And, right now the starter set on Kickstarter is only $65.
Right.
You compare that with a lot of, these big board games coming out these days that are coming out for $100. And so that was one of the reasons. But unfortunately, I'm not the tech guy. I'm the guy who tells everybody what to do. So I'm not totally up on that.
Yeah. So, on the Kickstarter page, it mentions that you're going to include solo play.
That's a stretch goal.
That's a stretch goal. I see.
Yeah. And that's cool because think about it this way. We can add AI to a miniatures board game. You put down that enormous Durrani Colossus, and now, all you have to do is have the iPad, have the app, whatever, take its turn, and it tells you, exactly what the Colossus is doing. And it's so enormous, you need kind of like a small army to take them on.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
And that's balanced by the army points you have to spend to get them included?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But, it's work for it to decide, which of its attacks it's going to use, where it's going to move, and which of its Golem Knight special abilities. It takes 3 Golem Knights to drive one of these things. And so, you could have up to 3 special abilities, so it could choose those. And then, the other idea that we have is that by doing things on the board, you can affect what it does, where it goes. Like if you take over these control points, it reacts and things like that. So, it feels like we're just in a new world to me right now. Once you start blending these things together, all the things that we used to do in video games, we could start bringing in minis games. And these minis are great because, they're big. They're not like 15 millimeter figures or whatever. They're, the big ass figures and stuff. So
I was surprised by how large and detailed they were. A picture, says a lot, but when I actually saw it in the video, with the players picking it up, they're quite large and very detailed and very quality sculpted.
Yeah, well, thank you for that.
And I know you actually have unpainted resin models for the kind of player that that's really part of the joy for them, the tabletop experience, is to actually customize their art.
That's very important to us. Yeah, absolutely. We want to give them what they want.
So with this interactivity between the TDI and the application, you have these persistent game states. With that, is there, like you were saying about how you wanted to include more video game mechanics within a tabletop game, would there be the possibility for, say, character progression, a leveling system, or some sort of world persistence?
We've definitely talked about that. Can't commit to it, can't say more right now.
Sure.
But you could see how that could happen, right? You can get veteran units and things like that.
Yeah, natural progression.
Absolutely. And, or even progression of your Golem Knights themselves. So that your Golem Knights, it's not just the Golem, progresses, but the Golem Knight progresses as well.
Right.
We're definitely looking at that. And then the other thing that we're really interested in is building like we did with BattleTech, this dynamic sort of living world. And now that we have this technological means to deliver story and things like that, what if you could, between games, download new new stories about this world, right? Or what if, as you're playing the game, especially in organized play and in tournaments, the outcome of the tournaments actually affects the game world, you know?
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's all sorts of stuff we can do with this, and that's one of the long-term, most exciting things to Jordan and me, because, you know, we love telling stories.
Right.
And we love the idea of players actually not only playing out these stories, but actually taking part in the world and actually changing the world. That's one of the reasons why one of our top Kickstarter tiers allows you to be a major figure in the world, right? Because, you know, from our other games, Shadowrun and Battletech, etc. You know, there are these major figures that appear in these games more and more, and wouldn't it be cool if you were one of them, if we took your photograph and actually turned you into a character in the game?
Right, it's definitely motivation for people to chip in a little more.
Yeah, it is for me. I don't know. I dig that kind of stuff. You know, I was, like 12 years old when Star Wars came out, and, you know, I just wanted to be part of that. I wanted my own, you know, rebel unit.
Yeah, it's your own form of immortality, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm part of it. Yeah, I think it's cool.
You know, with this new intellectual property, you know, you have the ability to start from scratch, so to speak. And I've been reading the lore of Golem Arcana, and it seems really interesting. What are some of the themes that you want to explore in this new universe?
Oh my gosh, let me think for a moment. There's all sorts of things. There's Sibling Rivalry.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of an adult world, and by adult I don't mean sex and drugs and stuff like that and violence. I mean, you know, we're really trying for a sense of reality. So, you know, the different factions have their own different motivations and stuff, and both political and personal. And so, you know, we intend to explore, you know, a range of human emotion and human themes in it, and what it's like to be occupied by a superior nation, you know, that kind of thing. There's a lot going on there. If you read the description of the factions, one of them was particularly interesting to me, which is one of the princes, one of the Rajas. He's the bastard son of the emperor. His mother was forcibly in the emperor's harem, but she was actually a princess herself. She ran off and escaped with him, and then this guy actually rose up to become this military hero, and eventually got like this really prestigious post in one of the military units, and eventually the emperor ousted the prince of this lower province and put his bastard son in this guy's place. And so the people of the lower Hamazi, they think they've got like the people's hero.
Right, they rally around him because he's a local.
Yeah, they rally around him. Yeah, he's a local hero, but he's actually a tool of the emperor.
That is interesting. Yeah, I did notice there was a recurring theme of sort of like political intrigue. You know, it did remind me in a way of like certain entertainment that's become more popular in the past couple of years, like Game of Thrones and stuff like that, where, you know, people are interested in the machinations of, you know, powerful people.
And I think what you'll see in things like Game of Thrones is the big people make these decisions, these very personal decisions, right? But it's the little people that pay, right? These big people go to war, but it's the little people that actually have to do the fighting and the dying.
Sure.
You know, that kind of thing. And so that's a recurring theme here as well. So you'll see that. And so you'll see that the world of Golem Arcana will have, you know, stories that take place at a very high level and stories that take place at a very low level. And that's very important to us. The people that are making the big decisions and the people whose lives are affected by those big decisions and whose lives are just as important to themselves as the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Looking over your factions, and they're very unique. Each of these factions, they draw their power from a different magical energy source, but they're not the standard, you know, fire, earth, water, air tropes. So I was wondering, how did you guys decide on how would you set the factions up? What unique energies sources they would draw their powers from. And,
well, I need to stop you there for a minute. There are two different things. There are codexes and factions. Mm-hmm. So the different codexes are basically lore books of the Ancient Ones on how to create a golem. Okay? And so different golems, like you're saying, are created by, a combination of, gems and blood or the bones of the dead, that kind of thing. And so those codexes are used to create the golems. Then these different factions field these golems created through the codexes. Make sense so far?
Sure. So different factions, have different combinations of codex to power
Exactly right. Exactly. So, the Urgal, the Urgal and the Zekia might be used by one of the factions, whereas the Durrani are used by another faction. As a matter of fact, the Hamasi Empire, for example, might only use the Durrani. Sort of this purity thing. That's all they use, that kind of thing. So there's sort of a mix and match thing. And, we've got ideas on events that are coming up in the future, for the discovery of new codexes or the creation of new factions and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, looking at each one of the codexes or the golems that are produced from them, each is very unique. They clearly draw from different cultural backgrounds.
Absolutely.
What were some of the inspirations behind some of these codexes?
Well, the major inspiration was that it's a little tiresome to see everything based on Northern Europe. Right?
Sure.
Like, oh my God, seriously.
For the typical high fantasy tropes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much awesome lore out there and different looks and feels, and you can hear it in the music from our Kickstarter. These influences. So we were influenced by Babylonian, even Thai, all sorts of different cultures. We draw a lot of reference from that, and our lead artist, Chris Rogers, just is able to really attune himself to those different cultures and sort of meld those things together. And Jordan is a wonderful creative director and works really well with people to get them to understand the vision of these things.
So these different codexes, do their play styles differ from each other, or
They ultimately will. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're going to do an update very soon on Kickstarter that gives you an idea of the strengths and the different sort of play styles with each of them. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. So the gameplay itself, it revolves around 3 character types: the golems, the knights, and the ancient ones. Now, the golems are the units you field in the game, right?
That's correct. They're the miniatures.
They're the miniatures. Do those golems fall into certain class types, like melee fighter or caster or healer, or are you going for something different?
No, you could say that. Yeah, they have those sort of classic archetypes, and of course there are different sizes of golems as well. There's the war sprite and the ogre and the titan and the colossus. And so those are different size and they have different abilities based on that size. And then within there, we've got all the classic stuff, melee units and long range and the rest. So absolutely. And then when you add to that the abilities of the golem knights who ride them, or the blood knights who ride them, and then the blood knights affinity with the ancient ones, now you've got so first there's the golem's abilities. Then there's the Golem Knights, special abilities. Then on top of that, there's the Ancient Ones that can give you blessings and curses and miracles. So the combination play is really, really important to us and a big part of it. So you can move and attack in any order you want. You could attack, move, just up to, the basis of everything you've got. And at the same time, you could use that Golem Knight's ability. You can use an Ancient One ability all in the same turn. And so the question becomes, what do I do first that can, positively affect the outcome? So you might,
feed into other moves that you might do.
Absolutely. I might have a long-range attack from the hills, and then I'll move into melee range, do my melee attack. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Why don't I do that long-range attack from here, then use an Ancient One special ability to reduce the armor of everybody in this square, in this region, and, because the enemy has a couple of things bunched up, now I'll move into that same region, and do my attack, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So do the golems use action points, AP, to perform their moves?
No, they don't use action points. They've got what we call speed points, which is just how far they can move.
Okay.
Okay. And then with the golem their golem's attacks, they have X number of attacks based on the size of the golem, right? And so you can use those, one or two or even three of them. The Colossus has up to 4 attacks. You can use all of the attacks in the same turn if you want to.
Okay. Now, the Blood Knights, who are the leaders of these different groups of people, they are heroes within the game, right? I mean, they exist digitally within the application, but are they like a prestige class for the pilots of the golems?
You could look at it that way. They're not always the leaders of the factions. So, there may be one or more of them that are leaders of the factions, but they might be just leaders of specific units, regiments, or that kind of thing.
Okay, so they're Golem Knights, but they're specifically renowned.
That's right. Think of it that way. That's that sort of royal bloodline.
Okay.
Sort of thing. So it's like the difference between, I don't know, one of Arthur's knights and Mordred,
Sure.
Arthur's son, whatever.
Right.
You get the idea?
Yeah, sure. On your Kickstarter page, you said that you're currently in the prototyping phase. What sort of features would you like to see as development continues?
Well, the truth is that we've done all the prototyping to get to understand the base game and exactly how it works, right? So for now, let's just say, for example, that we had no stretch goals met, right? We know exactly how the game is played and how the user interface should work. Not how it works now, but how it should work. We want to add some things like leaderboards, uploading for leaderboards, things like that. We've got to add sound effects and things like that. Not interactive music, but sound and things like that. By and large, we don't intend on adding a ton of features. Those come as stretch goals. We have enough cool features in the game right now based on what we're talking about to put the game out and be really solid. So like that save game functionality we've got to put in. We haven't done that yet. We know how to do it. The uploading of scores, the downloading of scenarios, all that kind of stuff. That's all stuff that hasn't been prototyped yet. We know what to do and we have a plan to do that. And then after that, there's all the cool stuff that comes out in the stretch goals. The other cooler stuff.
Right.
That's the thing. It's like, right now it kind of feels like it goes up to 11, so we want to crank it up to like 13, 14 with the stretch goals.
Sure. It's very exciting the Kickstarter started on September 10th, and you've already made over $100,000, so.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
We're at over 25% of our goal within 2 days, yeah.
Cool. Now, in August, players got the chance to playtest Golem Arcana at Gen Con. Were you pleased with the feedback that you got?
I was overwhelmed with the feedback we got. We're nervous Nellies. You know what I mean?
Oh, naturally.
These are our little babies, and to sort of take them to their first day of school, it's really nerve-wracking and stuff. We didn't know what to expect. We thought there would be an audience for it, but we were concerned that hardcore gamers, would
turn up their nose at the rule books.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is online we've seen a little of that, on some of the hardcore websites they have. But what's interesting is that, Gen Con has, the hardest of the hardcore. And once they got the chance to stop and look at it, see how it worked, and see how the combination play and the depth of the game, et cetera, once they saw it in action, they became believers, which really, buoyed me in particular because, I want this for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I first saw the idea, it's like, finally somebody did this. I think a lot of people have had the same experience where they see somebody or they hear about people playing these tabletop games, and the lore is so rich and the game's so compelling, but like you said, there is this huge gap between buying the game and then actually being able to play the game 6 months later when you're comfortable enough with the rules.
Yeah, I've always wanted to play minis games. Jordan's played minis games his entire life. I never really have. I'm a computer gamer and a console gamer. But I've always wanted to, and I've threatened to 100 times. And one of my friends had this, box set of, I won't say the name of the game, a very well-known minis game. Mm-hmm. He said, here's the perfect starter set, for you and kids and your family. And I'm like, that's great. I open it up. It's like, there's no freaking way. I'm just not going to. It's just too much of an time investment to do this. I want to desperately, but unless somebody's going to sit there and hold my hand and teach me how to play the game and paint these things for me,
right. In a way, you're not even really experiencing the game either, because with the hand holding, you don't have that opportunity to discover. So I think, with the TDI and the application interface, it's such a huge opportunity. Not only for the persistent data, but being able to, I don't want to say complicate the rules, but make them far more in depth without, pushing people away.
Yeah. No, I think my favorite Gen Con moment. By the way, we also did the same demos at PAX too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like over 600 people have played this demo now, which is just awesome. And my favorite Gen Con moment, now that I think about it, was the very last demo of the con, right? Mm-hmm. They've turned off the lights. Like they turned off the lights during the demo. Mm-hmm. What happened was this guy and his adult son walked up, and it was clear that these guys knew what they were doing, right? They knew gaming. They knew miniatures gaming. They asked all the right questions and stuff like that. And the father was really interested in it. He's like, come on, let's try it. And the son literally sneered at it. There's no other way to describe it. He just sneered at it. He's like, and he didn't even speak. He just gave a shrug and like, nah, I don't think so. Let's get out of here. And I said, please give me 5 minutes to the kid. Just give me 5 minutes. That's all I ask. I sat him down with the thing, handed the kid the TDI. I said, I'm not going to tell you how this game works. Okay. All I'm going to tell you is that, the game board is ugly, so that's high ground, that's cover. These rocks are hard cover, the woods are soft cover, and then you just figure out the rest, right? And so they sat down and started playing it, and the game taught them how to play itself. You know what I mean? All they had to do was look at the screen, and they figured it all out.
Sure, it was an organic experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I shut up and let the game do the sales work. You know what I mean?
So you made a believer out of them.
Yeah, that's the thing. And they shut down, so I said 5 minutes. And when they shut down all the lights and the guards came up at Gen Con, I'm like, all right, we have to leave. The kid's like, but we didn't finish the game yet. Like, gotcha. That was an awesome moment.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm sure you guys have plans for expansions in the future. After release, when do you think you might start expanding on that?
Well, the interesting thing about Harebrained Schemes is we don't sleep. So, the minute even before we finished Shadowrun Returns, available now on Steam, we were at work on our next campaign and on patches and updates and things like that, new functionality. And with Golem Arcana, there's just no sleep for us. As soon as we start going, I guarantee that we'll stay ahead of the curve so that we can, get the next expansion out, as soon as possible. So we could start prototyping, demoing things at, different conventions, stuff like that, getting real world feedback, and also, getting, some serious tournaments going. We're really into that. We love tournament and organized play, with leaderboards, and we're thinking of new ways of making it so refereeing those things are easy and all that kind of stuff. There is no lack of ideas at Harebrained Schemes. Let me just put it that.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of digital shop where people will be able to add more knights to their roster, or possibly list other ancient ones?
Yeah. No, there will be in-app purchase. Okay. So that you can add more. We'll give you enough, play the game, no problem. But yeah, you can buy more Golem Knights, you can buy more Blood Knights, you can buy more Ancient ones right in the app. So this isn't going to be some sort of, microtransaction game or anything like that. It's like, now I need to buy energy. None of that kind of stuff.
Right.
We're core gamers. We're making games for people. We have a conscience, okay?
Sure. You're not going to convert their dollars into Golem coins.
Oh my God.
That never add up to the.
Yeah. Been there. No.
So right now, Golem Arcana, it's set to be released in June 2014. Is that correct?
July 2014.
July 2014. And you're confident that you can make that deadline?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I made sure to say July because I think we can hit earlier. But, I would rather sort of err on the side of caution. That's what producers do.
That's wise. I guess my final question is, where do you see this franchise in, say, 5 years? Where would you like to see it at?
Where would I like to see it? As part of popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of,
So Saturday morning cartoon show?
No, not that far. But Halo is a part of popular culture. Everybody knows Halo is. If I could have anything, that's what I would want. If I could have anything. If I could have a prediction, I would say my prediction is that 5 years from now, the Golem Arcana storyline has engrossed lots and lots of fans, and that there are lots and lots of expansions out there, and at that point, there's a whole bunch of people that are rabid fans of it that are pulling new people into it, and that there's all sorts of different ways of new people to interact with it through fiction, through the miniatures game, and through other types of gaming as well, because our intention really, just like with BattleTech and Shadowrun and Crimson Skies, etc., is we're going to create this, this world and this universe that you can tell all sorts of stories in and do all sorts of games within. And, just like these other games have lasted, in some cases 30 years. Yeah,
I am extremely excited about it. So I'll be following you guys closely, and I'll definitely be one of the Kickstarter supporters. So thank you so much, Mitch, for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciated talking to you.
If you're interested in learning more about Golem Arcana, you can check it out at golemarcana.com. If you would like to donate to its development, check out their Kickstarter page. A donation of just $65 will secure you a base game set upon release. You can connect to Golem Arcana fans on their Facebook page and follow along with them on Twitter at Golem Arcana. I'm Ryan DeBral for Bag of Games, wishing you luck in your ongoing endeavor to conquer the Uruk Dominion.
Rock on.